Hello, welcome back to Tommy's Top Picks Weekly Roundup Podcast, episode 40. I'm your host, Tommy. I'm joined by John.
How's it going?
Good. We are also joined by Burke.
Hello.
Friend of ours from a local community in the Discord with us. Why don't you tell us a little bit?
Level 1 judge.
Level 1 judge for Flesh and Blood. You want to say anything about yourself?
I will say being a level 1 judge just means that you still make the same mistakes, but you know exactly why. When you did the wrong thing, that you know why you make the mistakes, but it doesn't
hurts
stop
more.
Yeah.
Right. That's fair. Cool.
Yeah.
Well,
other than that, just been playing Flesh and Blood.
Nice.
And hopefully judging some more events soon and going with that as well.
Absolutely.
Cool.
So we just some updates, some things about the channel. Thanks everyone who tuned in with us live on Friday when we celebrated our 1-year anniversary. It was a lot of fun. Gave some boxes away. Burke won one of our boxes. So congratulations, Burke, on your win. You will get your duck and your prizes soon, as will everyone else. We put out a video about the ducks, making of the ducks. And I'm going to put out a video making my bear duck, and it's going to be incredible. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, go back and watch our live stream where we race ducks for cardboard. So you can find that on the channel. So what else? The other big news is that we are launching 2 new channels. The comic book stuff is going to be moving to a new channel. So this week we will have the top 5 on Tommy's Top Picks for the last time before moving over to Tommy's Top Shelf Comics, a new YouTube channel. So you can find our comic book stuff over there moving forward after this week. And I'm going to be starting a tabletop miniatures painting YouTube channel called Tommy's Top Tabletop. That will also be debuting this upcoming week. You can expect a trailer coming out for that either later today or tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. That is Tommy's Top Tabletop. And the channels are already live. You can subscribe. So when we put up the videos, you can see them.
Cool. And all the cardboard stuff will be staying here. So
yes,
if you're here for cardboard information, you're in the right place.
Yep. No need to do anything. But if you are interested in comic books, check out that channel. And if you are interested in painting miniatures, check out the other. So how was our weeks? We didn't really open anything from what it sounds like our previous discussion. So what did we play? Did you play anything this week?
I was playing some Dromai into Viscerai yesterday, testing some stuff out.
How'd that go?
Not well.
Yeah, that sounds painful, right?
It really did not go well. But I was trying out the tome scenario where you play Mage Master Boots and Tome of Fyendel and just sort of try to get one big turn of just a lot of dragon value. And it didn't really work too great against Viscerai. I tanked a lot of damage to keep my hand. I did Tome of Fyendel, and I drew 2 more Tome of Fyendels.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's supposed to work like that.
That's unfortunate.
That's not the best.
Yeah. But I mean, I think Viscerai is just a lost cause for Dromai. He threw 30 some rune chants at me the first game.
Yikes.
And I think another 28, I think, the second game. Which is one nice thing about our friend Gary when he plays Viscerai is he actually keeps them all in a stack, so you can actually count after the game how many rune chants were created each game.
That's gross.
That's funny.
What's his high score? Do you know?
I mean, 30 was pretty high.
It is good. I mean, I'm not.
I think, just Mauve Skies working off of dragons is a really hard hurdle to overcome. And you can dilute your deck by adding some disruption, like there's like Fog Down, there's Chains of Eminence. But I don't know if that is a good plan either yet at this point, because it just feels so unwinnable.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I just need to diluting your deck. I don't know if that actually would help slow him down enough to make a difference.
Now, do you think, well, there's a couple things that could happen. Vis could eventually LL out, which will be probably 2 sets out at least, right?
I'd say so. It's not soon.
Or the alternative is that Dynasty gives some new heat to Dromai.
Yeah,
No?
I mean, I think
Yeah.
so. I mean, I think it's always going to be just with the way the room chants work. Um, he's one of the few heroes that can kill dragons while also pressuring you. He's really the only hero that can do that. I guess, save for like Dash, once their items are on the board. They have a lot of flexibility that way. But we know that there are some things coming for Jomaya and Fi, but I'm not really sure, other than just like more dragons, what they could really do for either of them, honestly. I know there's no majestic weapons yet, but I don't know if that is what they're going to do. They kind of just haven't said anything about that. I mean, most heroes have a majestic weapon, but I don't know if it's a needed thing for either of them.
Yeah.
What about a card that helps with Ash generation?
I mean, they already have a dragon for that in Necria. I don't
Mhm.
see. I mean, the deck is pretty synergistic in
Mhm.
terms of you're playing a lot of reds, you're pitching a lot of reds, and I think that was kind of intentional just to make sure, because you are starved for resources, and I think that's the point.
Right.
Because if you can play 2-3 cost dragons in one turn every turn, that's pretty crazy.
Right.
So I don't know. I think the only thing I really see missing is, I mean, there's maybe some more dragons with effects, like maybe like a pummel dragon, I think would be good, or something along those lines where you can have a bit more of disruption in the dragons. Because as of right now,
Can
it's
you
really just
pummel
like
dragon attacks? You
no,
can't. Yeah, I was gonna
no.
say.
I'm saying like a dragon that also like
Oh, a
acts
dragon
as
that.
a pummel,
Gross.
yeah, a
No,
dragon that
no, no,
pummels.
no. That's not okay.
So
No, I get what
well,
you're saying though, like causing
yeah, because
disruption
it's.
for the other player.
I mean, there's Vincerica has a lot of damage, but other than that, the only ones that really disrupt are Dominia, Tumulti. So Dominia and Tumulti, because even Optimize is just a lot of damage.
Sure.
What
So
if they went back a little bit? This is a different take. What if they did some of the illusionist stuff that Prism had? Something that's like just eat damage automatically, like a spectral shield, but maybe slightly different, called a, I don't know, defensive Drake
like a
is that,
dragon that automatically draws an attack or something like that.
or auto eats like the next damage that would go to, because that would defeat the rune chant capability, right? Because that goes towards the hero. And then
True.
so then that, you see what I'm saying? Because that would set up a little bit of a shield that you'd have to break through.
Yeah, kind of like a enchanting melody,
Yeah, it's a
but
little
as a
out of
dragon.
theme though, right? Because she's like, the whole red attack thing. She doesn't do the prism thing very much.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing she's missing is really just like with the general Draconic like rupture stuff.
Hmm.
I don't think like you can't really make an Ashwing Swarm deck at this time and
That
like make it consistent.
that would be cool if they gave
And
the tech for that.
I think that would be the biggest gap I see, is just a way to have more of like a swarm deck. Because I think that would open up different deck building as well.
Right. So would you say that Dromai needs new archetypes?
Transition.
Hey, calling out.
I think Dromai's archetype is fine.
Yeah.
I think the only thing with the swarm deck would just be because there is already this built-in rupture support.
Right.
Yeah, that would
Sure.
be cool. That would be cool. And
I think that's the only thing that she was missing in terms of just variety with the set.
Because that's a
we
huge
gotta have more,
bit of her card pool that she has access to as Draconic.
but
Mhm.
never uses, really.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially because they are specialization cards too.
And they're mostly red.
Yeah, so I always was a little confused by that. When you look at those cards, like I think it's like Burn Away and like Red Hot, where they're good cards, but they're really only 5 cards.
Yeah. Yeah. But
I
yeah,
think just a bit more support for that, I think, would be a good thing for her. I mean, honestly, she's really strong. Like, even punting the Viserai, you see that she's been top 8ing a lot of these events.
right. And do you think that's just dodging Viserai? And it just depends on your matchups can heavily sway, or
I think somewhat dodging, and also it is still a very skill intensive matchup. If the Viserai stumbles on what their game plan is, or
is
makes the
there
wrong decision, that you can still take the game.
enough Viserai to be concerned about?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest
question.
factor.
Like,
Yeah,
if you're
is that Viserai is just not top right now.
like if your counter isn't that prevalent, then it's okay to have one of those hard counters.
Exactly.
I mean, you always run the risk of being like, "Oh, they were my first 2 matchups. Today didn't go well." But I mean,
True. But I mean, that's always illusionist, though. It's
Yeah.
the same thing with Prism.
Yeah.
You catch that round 1 Phi or round
Right.
1 Dash, and your whole bracket's screwed up.
Yeah. But yeah, that kind of leads us into our main topic this week. In what deck archetypes does Flesh and Blood need? So in other card games such as Magic, you have all these different archetypes of different ways of winning the game, different ways of not just pure aggro, not just control, but like other things like mill or like combo.
Combo wombo.
A lot of win con stuff. A
Yeah.
lot of Magic and other games.
OTK. Like, we used to have it, now we don't. Besides, I guess, Bolton. I guess you could. It's close. Yeah, but does it count? Does it count? Yeah, so do we think Flesh and Blood needs some of these additional archetypes to continue being a healthy game?
Well, my first question to ask before we get into this is, does Flesh and Blood have mid-range, in your opinion?
Have a good range of archetypes?
No, mid-range.
Mid-range.
The archetype, like a mid-range play style.
It's hard to say anymore.
It exists.
No.
I would not say it's competitive.
Yeah, exactly.
What would you consider as like a mid-range deck?
Well, typically the definition of mid-range is of the triangle, right? It's anything that's a combination of 2 or all 3 parts, right?
Yeah.
That's the traditional way you define mid-range. And if
I'm
wrong, correct me in the comments, but that's what I've heard it defined as before.
I'd say Reinar.
So
like, I was praying
to pieces.
What?
What's his 2 pieces that he is?
Control
and
aggro.
Control. Okay.
Yeah. Well, so the mid-range is supposed to be, if you are a mid-range deck, you can outrace control decks while also stalling aggro decks.
Yeah. And so the way
it doesn't really work in the same way for Flesh and Blood because you don't have like a ramp.
Sure. Right.
You don't. So
you start at your peak.
Right.
So the way I've envisioned Reinar filling the mid-range in the way that I play Reinar, I play a lot of defense reactions and I play a lot of pummels. So depending on the turn, I can usually block out most of what an aggro deck, if it's a big, if a Phi is having a big like Art of War turn against me or something, I can block that out for the most part and just be easily block out and maybe leak a couple damage, but not too much. And then you have the turns where they have an off turn, they stumble. I most likely have a pummel because I'm playing 9 pummels. And then I can start that disruption and take tempo back. So I can play the defensive and then take the tempo back with the pummel turns.
The way I saw it all defined, I think it was in one of the Wrath Times articles or maybe a Flesh and Blood article, is that, the game is built around 3 core archetypes, control, aggro, and setup / combo, I guess is how they were kind of calling it. And then mid-range is anything that's a combination of the 2 or a combination of all 3. And there's different types of mid-range depending, like you could say it was aggro heavy mid-range or something like that, depending on how you build. I don't see those archetypes as much anymore. I mean, do we really have setup? I suppose the Dash that just won US Nationals was the setup. That's classic setup, right? Because that was how it was built. But besides that, Is there anyone else that sets up anymore?
Kasai.
How does Fi set up?
Kasai.
Oh, Kasai. Okay, yes, that's fair, but that's Blitz. We're talking. Well, I assume we were talking CC.
Well, I mean, I think
She represents where she can, John.
I know. Sorry, go ahead.
I would consider actually both Dorinthia and Bolton to be kind of mid range.
I'd agree with that.
Because like Dorinthia, you're just stacking counters. You're not necessarily trying to go full face aggro the whole game. But you're also not really disrupting a lot or doing a lot of control things, like grinding out of resources either. And I kind of same with Bolton with the charge mechanic and adding to his soul. It's like I think the closest thing you really get to like ramp in this game.
Yeah, you're right. They're both like setup / aggro to a degree. Like as they build up, then they hit their real aggro peak power.
Right. Like the same way, you wouldn't necessarily call Chain. I guess you could call him an aggro deck just because Runeblade cards are really good.
Yeah. By nature of being Runeblade.
13 cards a turn, that's feels pretty aggro.
A good Chain is comfortable just punting a couple turns because they know they have that general value coming.
Yeah,
that's true. And that is a tiny bit setup because you do have to do the what's the thing where you get the banished counter up each turn.
Well, I mean, that's just a free thing you can do each turn, the Soul Shackles.
Yeah, Soul Shackles.
But yeah, I mean, I think you have a lot of aggro, and I think a lot of different flavors of aggro.
Absolutely.
You have a surprising amount of control flavors, especially after Uprising. But then you don't really have any setup. I think really Kano and Saber's Bolton are the only two that are like actual combo. I think a lot of the setup decks, it turns into more of a control, like out of resources type thing with the Dashner items, the dragons, or when Prism was around, like the aura values. Not a lot of I win buttons in this game, which is probably good. But
it can be very feel bad, but I mean that shouldn't prevent them from making those types of decks because every game is going to have some kind of feel bad deck. Like I think right now it's like Oldhim or Icelander or just someone who freezes you out and just like doesn't let you play your game. It can be a feel bad.
Yeah,
but
yeah, and I think, but like aggro decks can have.
I was about to say,
oh, absolutely, yeah.
I think, and that's actually the way I had my Viscerai season 2. That was a very intentionally high rolly, and getting 26 damage turn 1 is pretty good.
Yeah.
With no prep, no setup. Just I think I threw out a Morgotide into Sonata, hit the Sonata, and then a Tome, hit the Tome, and then suddenly I had like a Rune Flash, a Swarming, and a Revel in my hand, plus resources. My opponent was very upset by that.
I bet.
I feel like there's feel bad in all archetypes.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. But it becomes a question of what feel bad types are the Flesh and Blood community okay with and what are they not? Well, you know what I mean? Like what if like we have the ones, I feel like everything now is fine because the community has accepted these. Say they come out with a new class that introduces the mill archetype. Will people be okay with that?
No, definitely not.
Like I'm thinking about like a mill into a dash. Like you're boost dashing and you're milling. Yeah. It's going to be a quick game.
Yeah.
Well, you would have to do the control.
Right. Absolutely. You would sideboard. Right.
But I think so. The tricky thing about something like mill is you would have to make that hero incredibly fragile.
Right.
Like a lot of 2 blocks. Not no access. I mean, obviously everyone gets Skull Cap or Crown, but like beyond that, like not a lot of blocking their armor. Maybe have temper on their legendary equipment.
Right.
Just to make you kind of have to make that awkward decision.
Right.
But I think it could be viable. I think it would punish decks that are kind of more high rolly like Viserai.
Yeah,
But
it would definitely.
a deck that's very consistent, I think, would be able to still thrive because if your hand is good, you can just lose the deck but keep the hand.
Right.
But honestly, I think that's better than what Starvo or even like what some Bravos can do, where you lose your hand every turn.
Oh, absolutely. It's
Maybe
incredibly
just not
frustrating.
playing the game, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think even with if you between the current setup decks like that we had, like where you had Viserai, OTK, and Bolton with the Sabers, when we look at those two decks, they actually work very differently. And I think while Viserai, yeah, I mean every turn you can get that like crazy 8 rune chance in one turn hand, but for the most part, that entire deck was synergized around that archetype. You have D reacts that make rune chance. You have other stuff
Right.
that's cost reducted by rune chance. You're just cycling through your whole deck to get all the rune chant cards for that pivotal turn. Whereas, with Bolton, it was more of you want to charge up your soul like 4 or 5 times, but then it's just a matter of getting like 2 or 3 of the Lumina Ascension or the other card that make that combo happen.
Right.
It feels less consistent. And I don't mean consistent necessarily even in like how it plays out, but like it's like, oh, I just got to draw my like really strong cards versus the Viserai one where it's like my entire deck is built around this game
Doing
plan.
this thing. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I actually like it that way better because it means the games play out differently. Whereas with the Bolton, there's one thing that happens. It either happens or it doesn't happen, and that's the one thing every time. It doesn't
Right.
have like any variety or surprise factor, I'd say. And you can see it coming. You can see it coming a mile away. Interesting thought about mill. So, right, the deck's concept is that it's like our energy, our endurance in this fight where we're swinging at each other with weapons and such, right?
Right. And you don't lose
and
when you get to 0.
yeah, and it's slowly going down. Yeah, but you can be worn down. And you think about something like venom or toxin or poison. How it weakens an opponent but doesn't necessarily kill them in a fight like that.
Right.
So it makes me think that's some pretty fun flavor. And I love a flavorful set of decks over how hardcore the mechanics are. I know a lot of people disagree with that, but so are we thinking the assassin's gonna implement poison in Dynasty? Is that what we're seeing?
Like Demir Rogues?
Yeah, I mean, I think that
like the poison could be a mill. The poison could force a mill.
Mill, or maybe, I mean, I don't think they would want to do something with resource taxing because that's already what frostbites are.
Yeah.
But we saw with all the stuff from Icelander just how much space there is up there with the affliction auras.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
And you would all stack them because I don't think you want to make something like Frost Hex again.
No, but you could make like a affliction or something like poison. Maybe even have counters on it.
Yeah, like a 3-turn counter.
Yeah, or even just you can ramp it up. You can give them multiple afflictions over time, and maybe it's not necessarily tied to the number of cards. Like how Frost Hex you could only ever have 3, whereas this could be like every time you hit with a X feature, I don't know what it's called, or assassin talent feature. Add one of these affliction counters, as opposed to it being a played card.
So the poison builds up. So it's like reverse blood debt.
So yeah, exactly. And it starts banishing cards, or maybe I'm not sure if it'd go graveyard or banish, but either way, banishing cards off your deck at the start of your turn. And of course, there has to be counters to that to remove it and that sort of thing. But I don't know. I think that would be kind of flavorful. It would definitely add a timer to decks, and especially the ones that like to use a lot of cards.
I'm sure there's items in Everfest for it.
It probably is. Actually, wait, there are ones that take stuff back, aren't there?
Yeah.
That cycle your graveyard.
Yeah. Well, I think, and also, you have cards like Remembrance. You have cards like Cadaverous Contraband.
Mm-hmm.
You even have like a lot of hero-specific cards. I know, the joke is with Viserai, you can keep cycling between like a Rattlebones and a Drowning Dire.
Right.
and just never actually be able to lose all your cards out. So I think that they do have mechanics in there to kind of keep your deck fat and keep cards cycling back in from your graveyard or banish zone. Not banish zone, but just graveyard. And I think they do have a lot of these cards that aren't really being used. And I think that is honestly a way you can build more deck folding. Do you punt some of your cards just to keep the extra sideboard slots for something like that? Or do you just go all in on your game plan and just say, I'm not going to worry about it? Because I think that for me is where the key comes in, where we just need more things to do.
Yeah, and
There's different ways to play. Because like most games play out very similarly in terms of you look for points of aggression and you take them when you can. I mean, obviously you don't want control to be too good, but when you look at the different ways you can play control, I mean, we're getting better, but you have like board presence and items or dragons or auras or disruption and pitch stacking, grinding type deal. And that's really it.
Right.
Yeah. So far, that is all they have.
So far, that is really it. And
I mean, we're still early. We are we have to remember, we're only on year 3.
Yeah.
And I think I remember they had plans for the first. Was it the first 7 sets or the first 7? I think it was the first 7 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have a roadmap.
Yeah, and I imagine a lot of stuff is yet to be revealed, because if we don't get poison with the assassin, I can't imagine us making it through the Savage Lands without some sort of toxic poison something mechanic.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, who knows? Maybe it's not even an assassin. I kind of would hope that they make whatever the new class is lore accurate or like story resembling, and from that assassin would make the most sense. But
agreed. You heard it here first. No, you didn't. You heard it everywhere else. Everyone has said assassin.
Well, what it's really gonna be is a necromancer, and like Dromai, you summon zombies, and then you can pull them back from your graveyard, and he will also be the mill character because he can pull zombies from his graveyard.
Oh, pretty cool.
Here's my hot take.
That's a fun hot take. I like it.
He will have 30 health.
Ooh, what if he
will have 30 health,
and that gives him the power to do the zombie thing. So he's like draining the life force out of the opponent.
He starts with 30 health.
Kind of fun. I like that.
He starts with 30 health, but has a lot of cards that deal with life gain.
And if he's Drakai,
health is a resource. It'll have cards that cost health to play, and it will have cards that gain health.
Yeah. I don't know.
I'm really excited. I think Necromancer is going to be awesome. I have made it all up in my head.
Yeah, if that's true. And
I am going to be so disappointed when it's actually announced what it is. But
he might have some abilities to affect allies, right?
Right, exactly.
I think they would make the new class Drakai.
Yeah, I mean, it would make sense.
That's fair. I mean, it's reasonable to say it's not going to be
a draconic necromancer,
because when you look at the amount of cards in Dynasty, it's a lot.
Yeah.
I think they said like double the Majestics, a lot of Everfest. I haven't seen exactly how many cards in the full set. But it just makes me wonder like how much of that is going to a new class. Because it'd be very different if they actually start building out CC classes in that, like a supplemental set, like a new class. And I don't know if you get enough cards in a supplemental set, even with extra cards, to actually build them out the way you do in an actual draft set.
No, that's why I worry it's going to be a meme class, because they just promised a new class. They didn't say anything else about it. And so what's like, maybe it's Alchemist, to follow the merchant, to follow the, you know what I mean? Like, and it's not really playable, and it's only blitz, and you know what I mean? That seems like the highest probability, honestly, because like you said, trying to build out a new class in a supplemental set, the cards aren't there. It's not really easy to do. So I don't know.
Unless it's a dual class and one of those classes already exists.
No, I think James White explicitly said the Emperor is the only one planned for a while.
I'm just
if
saying
at
it's a
all.
possibility.
It is
It's-
possible.
It's because he ate all that lava in his story,
That's right.
Yeah,
and that made him dual class somehow,
and only him.
and only him. I mean, look,
Well,
if
No
I
one,
if
no
I-
one else
if-
can go and drink the lava. No one watched him do it and was like, "Hey, maybe I should try that." And then I too will be dual class. Imagine
Yeah,
if
I mean, I
Yoji
think-
just goes and does that.
Yoshi does it.
he'll need,
Yeah.
he'll need a lot.
He's been around, right?
I
Maybe
don't
he's still
know the
digesting it.
story.
I don't think he was around at the time of that story.
No,
Oh.
the Emperor's like immortal, right? He's like, well, not immortal, but he's like a
No.
god power.
Yeah, but because I think he said he went to get the lava when he was like a teenager, and all his friends that came with him died.
Oh,
So I
well,
think this was
Yeah.
before Yoji became captain of the guard.
gotcha.
Also
that would
sounds
make
like
sense.
it's not going to be very easy to get back there.
Right.
Also true. But yeah,
So
I
there's
think
247 cards in the Dynasty set, so it's
a
not.
lot of
That's-
It's a lot, but it's not a huge number.
No.
It's just a lot of Majestics. They leaned up towards the rarities, the higher rarity.
Oh, that means our bulk is gonna be so bad.
That's true.
Bulk's gonna be bad. It's gonna be a lot of the same thing.
But I do wonder if they want to sort of grow their current heroes and like let them do new things versus stronger things.
I agree with that. I'm totally fine as a way to avoid power creep, just adding new things.
Because I think like the card we saw spoiled, the Kano card, that's actually I think a pretty interesting teaser.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just giving him more reason to play on his turn and turning it from like the OTK kind of setup deck to like more of like a mid-rangey, just bursting every now and then for a bunch of damage. I think that is probably a lot easier than making new classes that do all these new wacky things.
Oh yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
I think
Just giving classes different archetypes.
Yeah, and I think that's honestly, I think one of the better ways they can actually increase the skill gap of the game as well.
Sure, because you
It's-
have all these different ones. It's like what works best into the majority of the field.
And then you get fun mind games like when I was first playing OTK Viscerai, when I first got the deck, I was playing this one Bravo online a lot,
Hmm.
and we would just, and this was before Everfest, so obviously the meta was a bit different at the time as well. Basically, every game we would like tech for the last match we played.
Hmm.
So like he brought a lot of life game, I bring Reaping Blade. He brings more disruption, I bring more D-reacts. And then it got to this point where he had this one build that would just destroy the OTK game plan, but would just die miserably to an aggro game plan.
Interesting.
So, if you're thinking about in a tournament setting, like, okay, well, you're going to face a Viscerai as a Bravo,
Right.
but then do you tech hard to beat one archetype? Do you just kind of put a little hybrid in, or do you just not worry about the archetype and just kind of say, okay, well, whatever I face with Viscerai, I'll be fine because I have this.
Yeah.
And that adds a lot of hard decisions about deck building. And I think we need more of that because I think there are people that are able to exploit that. You look at Michael Hamilton and his list and Matt Folks' lists. And I don't think there's a lot of opportunities for people to really shine with their deck building, which I think more archetypes could really help with as well.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you have a wider array of archetypes, there's less of a rock paper scissors and more of a rock paper scissors gun glue hammer.
Yep.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not that one of three. It's like, here's a long list. And it could
Yeah.
be to just some random thing just no one was playing, but just breaks everything that everyone else was playing. And then that has to be the thing. And then everyone texts for that. And then because of that, the game shifts and then a new one pops up.
Exactly.
But yeah, and I think they have a lot of room to expand, especially in the class specific cards, I think. And just being like, here, maybe let's give Dorinthia cards to go wide. Or like a new sword. Or, I don't know, make Kasai an adult. And let people play Kasai and CC.
That's just what Tommy wants, regardless of what it is. That's the solution. It doesn't matter what the problem is.
It'll
The
bring
solution
combo
is
to
Kasai.
CC. It'll be fun.
I think they should investigate that at least, because I mean, I guess so. If you're playing Kasai but in CC,
Mm-hmm.
are you popping Courage the first combo cycle, or are you gonna wait and try to do it as like a lethal?
Yeah,
thing?
yeah.
'Cause that's a fun decision point as well.
Yeah, I think that would depend on the matchup.
Yeah, but I am a little worried because you think of Dory now with like Glistening Steelblade from
Mhm.
the classic battles.
Right.
I don't like that as a way to make heroes stronger.
What, just throwing a card in a supplemental product or something?
Just throwing out like, here's like a 10 out of 10 card for this hero that just makes them a lot better.
Oh, I get what you mean. Well, I mean,
Yeah,
this
that-
wouldn't be adding anything to Kasai. It would be
Right.
adding a third.
Oh no,
But-
no, but my point with that is that if you're adding cards instead of just making the version stronger, like adding a different game plan,
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it just becomes much more cohesive. And I said, like you said a while ago, John, where you like the flavorful
Mm-hmm.
deck building as well. I think that's honestly probably, and it's hard to do that for some heroes, but I
Yeah.
think like
I mean,
Magic and Runeterra, some of my favorite decks were the decks that it was like a flavorful deck
Right.
where all the cards not only work to the game plan, but are actually like thematically or lore connected as well. Because there's something that's a little bit more fun about that.
I agree. It feels more epic when you're battling it out, in my opinion.
so what if?
And that's
I'm sorry.
no, so this is like that's why I always kind of also dislike the staples a little bit.
Right.
Like
Oh,
Deep
yeah.
Strike, Command and Conquer, because it just feels like it's a good card. And price aside, like I get running it, but then it's also like, well, if I'm playing Viscera, I want every card to make the Rune Chance because that's like the theme.
Right.
Yeah, as I think with the ever living card pool, you get that over a decade, just because there's a lot of room of exploration left that we haven't even gotten to yet. Not just like lore and world wise, but I mean, and I think that's a factor too. But also just the way things work. The thing that comes to mind is this: you have multi-class, the combination cards. There's got to be cards in there that are help create wizard and warrior combination effects, and someday they'll be revisited with some other combo sort of play, either talent wise or with classes or whatever. I think right now we're just seeing like the surface of it, because we are just scratching the surface of the mechanics, and they introduce new stuff every set, new way of looking at the cards, new mechanic that kind of open up some parts of the design space. I want to be patient with it. And I've said this for a while because I think it's easy to get impatient, and this is definitely a long-term plan, and they've said it since the beginning it is. But like Rupture's a good example, right? That came out, it's used, but it's not extensively used, right? The dual talent thing, we had that in Everfest. We haven't seen it since. There's like every set, there's something new that they could do further stuff with, but they haven't yet. So
Right.
I want to see them get through a full cycle and then start going back to one, and then I'll be like, okay, now's the time where it's going to get interesting, but we'll see.
New versions of previous text.
Yeah, of dual talent, right?
Yeah.
What's the next dual talent that happens? Can't wait to see that.
Right. What I was thinking, like, with going back to Kasai and changing up, like giving her a majestic that gives her swords go again at +2, but it costs copper. So like you're grinding the copper, and then you can spend it in different ways. So it's still like you're building copper, but you just have different majestics that use the copper in different ways.
That's fun.
So like you use it for blood on your hands to go super wide, and then a little bit more damage, or you can use it to just go again twice and go taller.
I think you sold me on CC Kasai.
Right?
It would be fun. It
I'm
would add something.
the bandwagon's here. Hop on.
Tommy's been on this bandwagon since I don't even
I
know
might
when.
maybe I'll build an adult
Just do it.
Kasai and just show up and be like, is everyone okay with me playing Kasai and
I mean,
CC?
it wouldn't be all that like. I don't think it would be all that special or powerful. In
No,
adult
I
form,
don't
you
think.
know what I
No,
mean?
no.
Well, you could make an adult deck and just run her with 20 health and just say, oh, I'll see how it works.
It's true. That is legal.
Yeah, we'll see. We have our one Blitz night a month where I get to play her.
And actually, I finally have my Blitz deck. I'm gonna try out Kano.
Nice.
You get some combo wombo in.
Yeah. Well, also because Viscerai is no longer in Blitz, so I don't.
Right.
And
You had no
Dromai, I actually liked the aggro kind of Dromai deck I played, for the skirmish. But I don't know. I think I also just want to learn Kano anyways. And
Yeah.
I've been putting it off every season, and like now I need to finally just get it done and learn them.
I think it's a good time.
I think you'll like
Dynasty's
him.
Gonna unlock.
Oh, I know
Yeah.
I'll like them.
Yeah.
It's just getting the reps in. Well, I got tricked too. Because I had my OTK hybrid deck of Viscerai, and Skeletor got banned, and I was like, okay, well, this is my only deck, so I'll just play this next season with just my kind of aggro version. And then I was like, okay, well, maybe like next season I'll learn Kano. And then they're like, oh, well, Dromai is a control combo deck. And I was like, oh, perfect. And then it's a control deck, and I guess you could say if you play like 3 or 4 dragons on one turn, that's a combo. I don't, but
yeah, I think she hasn't gotten to her power level yet. It's like Icelander when she first came out. She was like neat trick, but not there, you know?
Yeah. Well, Icelander is also interesting because she did have a really good Blitz deck just from the cards she had.
Yeah, she was decent, but she wasn't like a powerhouse, you know?
No.
So, we'll see. I think Jeremiah will get there. I think Illusionist is just hard to like get the skill to and get the cards in the right balance for it, because it's like with Prism, she went from challenging to play to powerhouse to like knocked out of the meta almost completely, and then back with like 2 cards suddenly top of the meta. Now granted, some things had shifted in the meta too, but she was always like there threatening. But it was like this weird wave of popularity. So I think it's just hard to get it right.
No, it is. And I think, well, that's why I think most decks are versions of an aggro deck.
It's definitely the easiest in this game right now.
I mean, because they do have a lot of different flavors of aggro. I'll give, like, I'm not gonna ever, just say, oh, well, it's all the same. I mean, some are a little more boring than others, but you do have a lot of different stuff going on. Like Viscerai plays very different than Fi, who plays very different than Briar, or even like I don't know,
Boost Dash.
Even Boost Dash, and I honestly would say like Rhinar is a bit more of an aggro deck than a mid-range deck, but even so, it's like he plays very differently as well.
Sure, I just meant the way I built it was much more.
I just, for this game to be so constrained, it's what makes it really competitive, but that also makes it a lot harder to add these kind of other ways. Like, Legends of Runeterra, you have a landmark where if you just play play certain units, you win the game on the spot.
What?
Or if a certain champion gets 4 kills, you win the game on the spot.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Obviously, you have the interaction.
Just a straight up alternate win con.
Through that,
yeah.
But like, how do you do an alternate win con in Flesh and Blood? The game is too constrained, too transient to really do something like that.
Yeah.
Permanence.
It would have to be
bad, but
yeah.
Like
what if there's like an Exodia? Where like you play all these different items and then you just
Teklo bomb.
Yeah,
So just
yeah,
get
like a
that out.
Teklo bomb, and you get 5 pieces. If you get all 5 pieces out, then you win the game. And they're legendary, so you only have one of each in your deck.
I would love it, but it just kind of goes back to when you talk about like creating non-games.
It would be
There's gonna be a game where they get all their items out like first couple turns. Maybe you can only play one a turn.
Yeah, it has no go
That would
again, so you have to
actually
give it go again. So you have to end your turn playing it, and they don't block, they don't pitch, make them like
Yeah, so they're
worse.
painful to have in the
Yeah,
deck.
Yeah.
Something like that could work.
because then also
And
you
then
also
and then the
need
mill deck really has a very painful matchup on that one, right? Because it could
right.
mill out
What if
one of the
you
pieces.
what if you mill it, or what if you get it pummeled out of your hand, or what if like yeah,
That's true. It's true.
I
Yeah,
feel like it would be very difficult to do.
Yeah, but I like an idea like that, because then you can look back at the deck pool and think, all right, well, going back to that thing where it's like, okay, well, what can I add? I can add Remembrance. I can
Yeah,
add
right.
Cadaver's Contraband if it gets kicked out.
And I'm sure
Yeah,
there will
I
be
think-
more cards printed with like when they print the mill, they'll print more graveyard interaction, and I'm sure it'll be in generic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think
we'll see some fun stuff. I mean, we have Dynasty supplemental set November 11th, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that's freaking every supplemental set is my favorite because it totally just changes everything. It's like a revisit on all the classes, and
Oh, sure.
it gets crazy. Now we'll see how much this one gets crazy, because it feels like there's work to do on Dynasty. It's kind of what it feels like. It's got to be heavy weighted towards Dynasty. I could be wrong on that, but that's just how I feel. I mean, I'm sorry, not Dynasty, Uprising. And so, is it going to be a bunch of cards that are draconic or whatever? Like, how are they doing it? I don't know.
Right.
And there's the rumor that it was talent based, as opposed to class based this time, which would also be very different. What was it?
I honestly, the more I think about it, the less I think it's going to be talent based.
I agree, particularly with the reveals we've had so far.
Yoji just being a plain up guardian? What? Why isn't he a Zoom Draconic Guardian that can swing multiple times? That would be awesome.
That may be broken, but hey. As long as he doesn't get a shield, I guess that's okay. No, it's not. It's definitely not okay.
He's a blank hero with extra health.
Well, he can OTK himself, so there's that.
True.
That's true.
So, but yeah, I mean, I think when you look at like the supplemental sets, I don't know. The more I've been thinking about it, the less I want talent support in a supplemental set, and the more I think I would want talent support in more draft sets.
That means revisiting the land, though.
I absolutely want more
think
draft sets.
After you hit every land once.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, once you cycle through, then yes, absolutely. I just feel like that's not going to happen till they're done. Because we got Savage Lands, we got the Pits, we have Metrics, so we have at least 3 more.
And then was it Mysteria for the ninjas?
Yes, Mysteria is also. I guess that wasn't technically hit in the beginning, right? Because that was just Welcome, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, but I mean, like Metrics in the Pits could be its own set. Savage Lands Mysteria could be a double set. I don't know. I just think because it kind of comes back to that Glistening Steelblade thing, where yeah, like if Bolton got a crazy light card in Dynasty, it's, I mean, good for him in his power level, but then it's just kind of, it's like another deck where did you draw all your X cards or did you not? And I think that's where I'm worried about the game going.
That's fair. Like whether they basically fix the meta by printing one super powerful card.
Yeah, it's like Briar, okay, who drew their channels first?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
I think it's hard to balance that in a way that feels fun.
Yeah.
Because like over the course of a game, you can expect to see all of them. But when it's like, oh, well, I got 3 out in the first 5 turns, that hurts more than just getting them throughout the course of the whole game.
Yeah, well, wasn't that the same problem with Starvo too, to a degree? That was one of
Oh
the things
yeah,
people disliked. The Starvo matchup, it was like whoever
first crippling crush, first
Yeah.
Oakenold.
Yeah, whoever drew Oak first won, of the two of the face to face. Yeah, that is an anti-fun part of the game.
I will never forget that ProQuest I went to, and it was the mirror, and he got to go first, and it started with a crippling crush, followed by
And
another
that was the
crippling
game.
crush, followed by an Oakenold, all fused. So, no big deal.
Yeah, that's not fun.
No.
That's not fun.
Yeah, but like, what else? I mean, we talked about Mill a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But like, what else have you seen in like other card games that you think could exist in Flesh and Blood?
I want the classic Blue Wizard control game plan, from Magic, because they have control to a degree, but it's like slow your opponent control. I want to turn things against themselves. I want to take things and make them, your action is not only null, but coming back in your face sort of thing. You know what I mean? They don't have anything like that right now, as far as I can tell. The closest I think is that the
Icelander.
Icelander doesn't really turn it back in their face.
No, but it does
It
be
just
like, if you
stops
want to keep going. Yeah, exactly.
But
Oh,
that's
so it'd be like more of
boring.
like okay, you have
Is
something
it
on
is
you
it
where it's like
style combo
every card
blue?
you play, you deal 1 damage to yourself.
Yeah, things like that. Things
So
where
like,
it's like, yeah, because that leads to a whole different game style where you're thinking more at a macro level, and which they do. I feel the Wizards do make you think at a more macro level. So I think it could get there, and I think this would be a wizard of some sort. But like, maybe that's how the Lightning Wizard works that they featured in some of the art. Something like that. That would be fun. So that would be the archetype. So is it style, whatever the equivalent of that, the combo wombo plus, no, you don't capability.
So would you
I
be
don't know.
thinking like more of like a permanent game type, like an illusionist, where you have like a bunch of things out, and you would just
There's a
like, but they would
million
be like
different ways you could do
but
it.
they would
Yeah.
be like enchantments for Magic, like
Yeah.
where they just alter the game state.
Yeah, it could
Yeah.
be game state altering, auras, enchantment type things. It could be items like you place, I don't know, totems down and they attract the lightning. And so every time they swing, they get damage on themselves, sort of stuff. I mean, we've seen different ways to do all these things.
Right.
There are counters technically in the game. No one uses them, but they exist.
Sure.
So stuff like that. I think it would be interesting. I don't think it's supportable at this stage in the game. It would be later, but I like
Right.
that stuff.
I mean, I think that is something that I think that is close enough to be able to just be dropped in soon.
Yeah, and this new set, I'm hoping adds some of the pieces for it. Because we're in wizard land. We should have wizardy things happening.
I mean, a wizard on like a on their turn wizard is. I mean, that's what it would be, kind of like you'd be setting up on your turn for then respond better on their turn.
I mean, ultimately, what I'm describing is like an OTK situation. Because think about how Izzet plays in MTG.
Right.
Ultimately, you set yourself up to have the right pieces to do a combo that allows you to go near infinite, right? And then you kill them.
Right.
And until you get there, you're basically saying no with counters the whole time.
Right.
So
Not yet.
Yeah, exactly. You think D-react type stuff.
I mean,
damage.
honestly, that's kind of how Icelander plays currently with the Frost-Hex win conditions.
It is, except the Frost-Hex win condition is kind of like if you get Frost-Hex on your first turn, then it works. Otherwise, it won't work. You're not going to make it. And maybe that's just a power thing. Like if she gets a little power creep, she'll be there. But currently, some of the best players are like, yeah, it's if you get Frost-Hex turn 1, turn 2, fine, you can go with that game plan. Otherwise, you need to go with the backup plan because it's not going to happen. So
yeah.
And she doesn't do the combo stuff. Like I'm thinking, it's almost like a combination of Kano and Icelander, right? Like hold the line. Okay, now I'm gonna explode. And yeah, I guess she does have the one combination that can do that, but it's uh, it's not as easy to do. It's not as fun to get there. I don't know. She'll get there eventually. Maybe I'm just not good enough with her.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing you guys keep saying like power level, and because like honestly, I don't even care if like these new wacky things are good or not. I think it's just like we need more armory support, like just local level, bring some fun stuff, bring something stupid, and
Oh,
see how it
sure.
goes.
Sure.
All right, where's your merchant deck? Come on.
It's like the one time I brought that, and it was actually really one of the most fun times I had deck building, where I built a Viscerai deck, but I could only use cards from Everfest. And when you're playing it out, it just having to think about like how you actually want to play the game differently. It's stuff like that's fun.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna see. I think we're gonna see more of that flavor in the PVE, just from the way things sound, where it's like more a for fun sort of situation you sit down for, as opposed to the competitive, and that's fine. That makes sense to me, honestly, if that's how they do it.
I mean, they're leaving a bunch of people out if they don't, because there are a lot of people that I'm sure would love this universe, but haven't dove in because there's only a competitive side right now.
Yeah. I mean, they've said specifically
it'll bring a lot of
is specifically to get as many people as they can, and it's their flagship casual format, etc. So they're putting the effort in, and they've been working on it for like 4 years now or something, like ridiculous amount of time. So
I mean, they said they want to take it seriously.
Very first calling,
right?
Hopefully, it's really good.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, but what about you, Tommy? Before we go, what's the kind of deck that you don't see currently in Flesh and Blood and you want?
Oh, it's that mill zombie deck that I described.
So you just want like the Necromancer kind of.
It's the worst.
Because honestly, the Necromancer I think could be a cool like kind of cross between like a Ranger and an Illusionist, where it's like maybe you can only play the zombie cards from your arsenal.
Right.
Or your
graveyard.
I think graveyard would be better because it's
graveyard's like so. Graveyard's just like so on the nose.
Or so you have you have a bunch of zombie tokens, right? So like instead of rune chance, you have zombies, but this one you actually need the cards. Like you need that many because you are going to. It's like if you hit or just like cards that generate zombie tokens, and the zombie tokens generate into your graveyard, and then you have cards that pull zombie tokens out of your graveyard and onto the field.
I hate zombies. I hate your mill decks. I hate your zombies.
And then there's going to be like a Sonata. There's going to be a win con, like a Sonata, where it's going to be an XX, and you can pay X and then bring X zombies back.
No. Even better, something that just blows them all up. Like you just make
deal 1 damage for every zombie in your graveyard.
Yeah. It's like a rune chant OTK. Well, no,
deal one
on the field.
Like one arcane. Oh yeah, that could be cool too. Oh yeah, I mean, there's so many things, and it would be a ton of fun.
I hope the zombie is what we're all surprised with in Dynasty.
Right, that would be so good. I mean, there was that art leak. It's not based on nothing.
It's not nothing.
Okay, which one was that?
There was an art leak of a Flesh and Blood artist.
Oh, wait. Yeah, okay. The guy with the hyenas with sunglasses or whatever.
Yeah. If you don't know what we're talking about, feel free to sign up on Patreon for $1 a month. You can join us in the Discord, and you get to see all this crazy stuff we talk about.
It's true.
Because it was a very much a theory at best. It was fun to explore.
A man can dream of adult Kasai and a zombie necromancer. But yeah, anyone else? Yeah.
I will say one thing that I kind of wish you had more play around. The landmarks are really cool.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I was actually thinking about that earlier when you were talking about the like mechanic thing, the 5 pieces come together thing. I was like, more landmarks, more places,
Yeah, I think like I'd like to do it where it was more of almost like a mechanic, like with Dash, where she can pull an item, but it's like if this card is in your deck, you can like have it in your field to start, and it's a harder card to keep alive, or maybe like the value's different. I just feel like stuff like the landmarks is such a cool space. The way
On the
you have to finally kind of draw it and then play it, it just feels not as great.
Yeah,
Right.
it's a problem in the current mechanic structure for the ones that exist.
So you make
But-
an explorer class where you start with a landmark in play.
Yeah, or maybe like if the next fabled landmarks, or maybe they make majestic landmarks where they
Right.
just
Or
start-
rare landmarks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what if you're playing the mirror and you're playing different landmarks?
Well, landmarks automatically blow each other up, if I recall correctly, right? Isn't that a
Right.
rule?
So how would that work in the mirror? Judge.
Judge.
Ah, man, no one plays landmarks.
I'm only level 1.
I don't know, look it up. I'm pretty sure it's the same landmark.
If it's the same landmark, they blow each other up or whatever. That makes sense.
Okay. Yeah.
That
Then I guess it
hasn't
would
been a thing
depend on the
since-
die roll. That
Yeah.
seems a little clunky. They'd have to do some changes
Well,
on how landmarks work.
Yeah, they've changed the rules before, so
Yeah.
it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, because I think it's honestly something I think you can kind of like look at old card games, like
Yeah.
Magic and
Pokemon
Yu-Gi-Oh!
has them. The
Not landmarks per se, but just sort of like these other ways to make ideas.
yeah, I mean Pokemon has battlefields that you put out and like it
Yeah,
changes things.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. Like enchantments that affect both players, which landmarks essentially are that, right?
Right.
That,
Mhm.
Something along that line would definitely add a lot of variance to the way games are played.
Yeah, 'cause even
Imagine
so-
one that does -1 damage to all attacks. See, it's the wizard's playground.
Oh, if the Necromancer gets like a Meat Hook Massacre like card, that would be wild. Meat Hook Massacre is a card where
I was about to say, you might need to explain that.
where when it's in Magic, when your opponent has a creature that dies, you gain 1 health, and whenever one of your creatures die, they lose 1 health.
Yeah, see, there you go. There's your win con. You know,
So if you
zombie
die
or-
by killing my zombies,
Yep.
Yeah.
That's fun. I like that.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie though. It's after we started playing that vampire game, Vampire: The Internal Struggle,
Mhm.
and just seeing how much variety was in that game,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
it just really like like you can do all this fun stuff, and it's somewhat combinable. And I look at Flesh and Blood, I'm like, oh, I can play aggro or control.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they need to
Yeah.
get some variety in there. But like I said, you know, maybe it's not for competitive because it's hard to balance all that. Maybe they'll get there eventually. Maybe you just get the variety in the PVE. Because I mean, clearly Blitz has more variety. It's not just control and Blitz, but Blitz is such a quick format. You don't get to experience it fully. you know?
everything's aggro.
Yeah, everything's like 1 or 2 turn kill.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're quick games, so it doesn't really
Yeah.
matter.
Yeah, but I mean, I would say they should make it in like somewhat competitive, or they should push to make it competitively viable. Because honestly, you have your like tier 1 decks, and you have your like tier 3 decks, like the Bolton and Azalea decks.
Mhm.
But most decks exist honestly in that tier 2 sphere.
Oh, the
Where-
tier 2 sphere is huge. There's a
So I'm
lot
like,
of solid
honestly,
decks.
all you gotta do is just make it tier 2, and the people that are diehard fans of that style will play it, and they can have some success with it.
Yeah.
I think-
Legends does that eventually, you know, when there's so many, because I mean, what, 2-3 years from now, how many are going to be in there? It's going to be a lot. It's going to keep getting bigger every set as things living legend out. That's going to be
Yeah.
insane format.
Oh, the format's going to get nuts. And that's honestly what I'm really excited about. Instead of not necessarily, I am excited for new archetypes in Flesh and Blood, but I am also very excited in new formats that pop up
Yeah.
and new ways of playing.
Except Popper.
Well, commoner. Yeah.
I did not like that. It was not fun.
It's a little too slow. But any other tidbits before we
Final
thoughts before we wrap this up?
None for me. I think just the more variety, the more people get to play what they want.
Cool.
And I think that's what it comes down to.
Oh, absolutely. Cool. Well, that does it for episode 40. Burke, thank you so much for joining us. Hope to have you back soon. Talk about more Flesh and Blood. Anyone, I guess, just wrapping up, if you're still listening, thank you for listening. Yeah, of course. And don't forget to check out our new channels. Starting Monday, there should be stuff going up, or Tuesday. Tommy's Top Tabletop for the miniatures, and Tommy's Top Shelf Comics the comics will be here this week. Next week, they'll be on the comic channel. So, until next week, we will catch you guys later.
Have a good one.
Have a nice night, guys.